I'm Angelina King. Tonight, a family finally feeling a sense of justice after their loved one died in an Ontario jail 7 years ago.
I want people to remember this tragedy as a starting point for transformational change in the correctional system.
The inquest into the death of Soliman Fakiri wrapped up today with the jury making more than 50 recommendations to the province, and
he would feel at peace knowing that his life meant something.
Honoring Jonathan Davis will take you to a new youth hub in Malton, created in memory of the teen who was killed in the community 4 years ago. Plus, big changes to how and where you can buy alcohol in Ontario. An announcement is expected this week, but the move won't be official until much later. Good evening and thanks for joining us. After 3 weeks of testimony, an inquest jury deemed the death of Soliman Fakiri a homicide. He died after an altercation with Ontario jail guards 7 years ago. And today, the jury made dozens of recommendations to the province aimed at increasing oversight of Ontario's correctional system and providing mental health care to those within it. Tyler Cheese has more from the inquest and what it means to Fakiri's family. But first, a warning. This story contains some disturbing details and images.
I want people to remember this tragedy as a starting point for transformational change in the correctional system.
After 7 long years, Yusuf Fakiri feels his brother Soliman has finally received some justice.
This inquest showed who this young man was: a loving son, a man in acute mental health crisis who needed support, who needed compassion, instead lost his life.
The inquest into Soliman's death began last month and has resulted in a verdict of homicide. For 3 weeks, the jury was presented with a series of videos as well as testimonies from prison staff and expert witnesses.
It's been painful, it's been excruciating, but at the same time, it was important for us and Canadians to see this, even though we went through the pain, to say this is the devastating effects of people with mental illness when they're in corrections.
The jury heard Soliman suffered from schizoaffective disorder and was awaiting a medical evaluation at a mental health facility. It never happened. Instead, he was shackled, pepper sprayed, and covered with a spit hood face down on a cell floor. The verdict carries no legal consequence, but the jury made 57 recommendations to the Ontario government aimed at preventing future deaths in provincial jails. That includes ensuring prisoners experiencing an acute mental health crisis are admitted to hospital for assessment and provided treatment when appropriate.
We're happy with the recommendations that the jury made.
Lawyer Lydia Dobson provided legal support in the inquest to a group tracking deaths in custody.
The first thing that I would note is that these are not binding recommendations, but again, I would say I'm cautiously optimistic. I think we continue to see people who are experiencing mental health crises in Ontario prisons, and that really hasn't changed much in the last however many years.
She says they've already started on working on strategies to ensure the province adopts the recommendations. As for Fakiri, he's hopeful the police will reopen the criminal investigation into his brother's death.
There needs to be criminal accountability into the beating death of Soliman Fakiri, and it's a question that the police needs to answer.
A vigil is planned for the anniversary of Soliman's death this Saturday. Tyler Cheese, CBC News, Toronto.
We're learning more tonight about the case involving a Mississauga man accused of selling poison online to people around the world who later died by suicide. Kenneth Law is facing additional charges and more serious charges tonight. Thomas Dagla has our update.
After laying 14 murder charges for deaths across Ontario, police won't say whether Kenneth Law should be considered a serial killer. They do say they can prove his guilt.
Evidence has come in that supports the charge of second-degree murder. I can't speak to that evidence at this time to preserve the investigation.
Police allege the 58-year-old sold a pure toxic salt online to vulnerable clients around the world. A former Toronto hotel cook, Law is now charged with both second-degree murder and abetting suicide in connection with 14 deaths in Ontario, including that of 19-year-old Ashton Prosser from Windsor.
Have a good evening.
We reached his mom, Kim, who's spending time away to cope with her loss.
We are coming around the corner of my first Christmas ever without him.
The new murder charges mean prosecutors must prove Law knew his clients would kill themselves with his products, says this legal expert.
The charges could be that Mr. Law, through some emails or through looking on his own devices, knew exactly what he was providing to these people.
In one email exchange obtained by CBC News, a woman posing as a would-be client wrote, "I weigh 82 kilograms, so I think it would be one 50-gram sachet I would need. Would you say that's right?" Law's response, 50 grams is plenty.
Was Kenneth Law in direct communication with these alleged victims?
That is something that I'm not going to speak to today, just to preserve our case.
As for Kim Prosser, remarkably, she's not expressing any anger. Instead,
These new charges don't present or provide any resolution. I want forgiveness, not retribution.
Ontario investigators say they're in touch with counterparts around the world as this case keeps growing. Thomas Dagg, CBC News, Mississauga, Ontario.
A man is dead following a stabbing in the East End of Toronto. Police were called to the beaches early this morning after the victim was found lying on the ground. Our Ali Shiasan has more.
A man in his 20s was found stabbed to death in a parking lot near the back of a church on Lockwood Road, just north of Queen Street East.
At approximately 6:10 a.m. this morning, officers received a radio call to this area with respect to a medical complaint of a male unconscious.
He was pronounced dead at the scene. It's believed he was lying there dead for several hours before anyone noticed. This neighbor who lives across the street heard an altercation around 2 a.m.
My wife and I were just awoken to some commotion on the street. We thought it was just some sort of argument or something taking place, and then woke up this morning to this and just were very surprised. It's the beaches, you know, this never happens here.
I saw a body covered over by a tarp, orange tarp, earlier on this morning.
How frightening is that to see?
Pretty scary.
I heard that they already had detained and have a suspect in custody.
Is that a relief?
Yes, it is, because it's very easy in a big city like this with such a large population for someone just to disappear.
Police say the suspect turned themselves in this morning and have released few other details. Like, why is this e-bike considered evidence? Did the victim know his killer?
We do have a male in custody, so we do not believe the public is at any risk. But we are still asking for the public's assistance.
To answer the most pressing question, which is why was this young man stabbed to death, police are asking for surveillance footage and witnesses to help them piece that together. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
A special place for youth in Malton held its grand opening tonight. It's named after 17-year-old Jonathan Davis, an innocent bystander who was shot and killed in 2019. His death led to calls from the community to create more safe spaces for young people, which is exactly what the Jonathan Davis Centre has to offer. Greg Ross got a tour.
He would definitely come here.
Selma Alinti is a close friend of Jonathan Davis's family. She says he would have loved the new youth hub named in his honor, especially because it has a place where kids can play video games.
Oh, he would definitely be in that games room. Oh, yes, he would. He was an avid gamer, so he would feel honored.
She says Davis was a quiet teen who stayed out of trouble, which made it all the more shocking to his family and friends when he was senselessly gunned down in September of 2019.
He was a bystander. He was not in a gang. He was not a part of anything. He was basically going home to get something.
His death had many in the community calling for change. Parents wanted places where kids could go and feel safe.
Food security, arts that was missing, music was missing, just a place where they can be and be themselves and be loud without being told, shh, you need to be quiet.
Patricia McNaughton is the manager of the new Malton Youth Hub. She says the goal here is to address all of those needs by creating designated spaces like this dance studio.
This is where youth can come after school. They can do TikTok. They will learn various variety of dances.
Or this industrial kitchen, which will host cooking classes.
Youth can come and they can learn how to prepare a meal, how to prepare a healthy snack. How do you create something from leftovers that's in your fridge?
And there's the games room.
This is where youth can come. They can participate in various activities. They can socialize with their friends. They get to build relationships.
While Davis didn't get an opportunity to experience a space like this in his lifetime, he's a big reason why young people in his community have one now.
He would feel at peace knowing that his life meant something.
Some of the community members who were originally calling for that change back in 2019 were here tonight to help celebrate the grand opening of this center. They were joined by politicians, police officers, local business owners, and several members of Jonathan Davis's family who all came together here to try and make something positive out of a very tragic situation. Greg Ross, CBC News, Mississauga.
You're looking at a live shot of our city right now. Clear skies tonight and hovering around that freezing mark. Victor Paolo joins us now for a look at our forecast. Victor.
Hope you're having yourself a great late night. Now, taking a look at a couple of headlines, we do have some warmer lows when it comes to the overnight temperatures coming our way, but we also have a snowy Wednesday. And once those things are out the way, guess what? We're in tune for a beautiful, sunny Friday. Now, average temperatures this time of year, 1.4 is your average high and -6 is your average low. And here's what it looks like for what's going to be coming our way when it comes to the overnight tonight. It's going to be some mixed cloud cover. It's going to be around -1, feeling like -7. But as you do get later on towards your Wednesday, can see right around noon. As it gets later on to the day, there is some flurries working its way consistently, but by the time we get to your overnight for Thursday and towards Friday as well, there's going to be no more snow, no more flurries, nothing but a high pressure system where we get to experience all that sunshine. Now tomorrow morning when my little Emmy and your little ones are getting ready, it's going to be a little chilly, 1 degree, feeling like -6, and a quick look at our 3-day forecast. Well, as mentioned, once we get through all that snow on Wednesday, we have some sunny days in store.
Welcome back. There are questions tonight about Toronto Police's use of force after video emerged of a weekend arrest at a Palestinian solidarity rally. It shows an officer repeatedly punching a man while another appears to put a knee on the suspect's neck. Toronto Police say that's not what happened. You can see for yourself. Talia Ricci has the video.
Video shows multiple officers surrounding a man outside the U.S. consulate in Toronto. One officer appears to stomp on his glasses and kneels on his head and neck to restrain him.
After the person who was there to stand in solidarity with Palestine was attacked by the police, protesters quickly started recording what was taking place, recording the police violence, and also chanting for the police to let him go.
This former chair of the Toronto Police Services Board says he was surprised to see the way the protester was restrained.
This video seems to suggest that police officers on the ground are still doing the things that they are supposed not to be doing.
Toronto police say prior to that, a police vehicle was blocked by protesters. An officer who was trying to clear the road clipped the wheel of a demonstrator's bike with his own bike. The protester fell to the ground, and that's when the officer was pushed over from behind by another protester. Police say Adam Melanson was arrested and charged with obstruction and assault of a peace officer.
Answer the call to help our comrades.
The incident led to thousands of protesters from 2 separate pro-Palestine rallies meeting at 52 Division to demand his release.
There's this question about how is it that there was such a large presence of police and yet they could not restrain one person without resorting to knee-to-neck restraint.
Toronto police say it has reviewed all available footage, and at no time did the officer place a knee on the suspect's neck. Adding, during dynamic situations, officers are trained to use the amount of force necessary to render a situation safe for all involved. But that type of restraint is seen in a different light now after the murder of George Floyd. Back in 2020, former police chief Mark Saunders spoke out publicly against knee-to-neck restraint.
There have been recent discussions on the use of knee-to-neck restraint techniques. And I want to be clear that this organization does not, and I repeat, does not train to this.
Police say most of the rallies have been peaceful, but approximately 5 people have been arrested for breach of the peace and released without charges since the Israel-Hamas conflict began on October 7th. Dalia Awad says the incident isn't going to hold the organization back from planning future demonstrations.
This won't be stopping our efforts to organize, and we'll continue mobilizing in the streets.
Toronto police say it will not be releasing the body camera footage because the incident is before the courts. The suspect is set to appear in court on January 25th. Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
CBC Toronto has learned on Thursday the Ford government will announce its plans for changing how alcohol is sold in the province. The changes include allowing convenience stores and gas stations to sell beer, wine, and pre-mixed cocktails, but not for another 2 years. Our senior reporter at Queen's Park, Mike Crawley, has the story.
Well, sources in the industry are telling me that this is going to be the biggest reform to the retail market for booze in Ontario since the end of Prohibition. Let's start with corner stores. Now, any corner store or gas station that sells food will be permitted to sell beer, wine, and cider. The same goes for any grocery store. So that means no more limits on how many supermarkets in Ontario are licensed to sell. Now, grocery stores, convenience, and gas stations will also be able to sell those ready-to-drink beverages. Those are those pre-mixed cocktails in a can, or vodka coolers, or seltzers, that kind of thing. Now, that's a change because right now, those products are only available retail from the LCBO. Now, there's also going to be an end to restrictions on the formats for selling beer. Right now, you can't get anything bigger than a 6-pack at a supermarket or a grocery store. You'll be able then to buy a case or a 2-4 from grocery or convenience stores. Here is a key thing, though, about all of this. Although the announcement comes on Thursday, none of this is going to happen until 2 years from now, according to my sources. The changes are not going to take effect until January the 1st, 2026. Now, I did reach out to officials from the Premier's office for comment on whether the info that these sources provided me is correct. They did not respond.
You can read much more about this story on our website, including what this means for the beer store and the LCBO, and what's still up in the air about the changes. That's at cbc.ca/Toronto. All right, time now for your full weather forecast. Let's check back in with Victor on what to expect this week.
We're talking about those cold temperatures and a little bit of flurries we're expecting tomorrow. Reason why is you can see a lot of that wind coming in from the northwest, pushing all those winter-like conditions our way. But you can see for southeastern Ontario, we are still in the seasonal green because we still have seasonal temperatures. Don't forget our average temperature is -6 is our cold for the average low, but we're still a bit warmer than that right now. Well, taking a look at watches and warnings, luckily nothing in the GTA directly when it comes to watches and warnings, but you can see a little bit northwest. There are some snow squall warnings close to the Great Lakes. You want to make sure if you are heading those regions, you're planning ahead because the conditions will not be favorable. Now, when it comes to tonight here in the GTA, it will be -1, feeling like -7. Still pretty chilly in my book, so if you are outdoors, you want to make sure you're bundled right up. Now, here's what it looks like for the amount of snowfall we're expecting. The good news is we're not expecting any more than 2.5 centimeters in the region. As you can see, not a lot of buildup here, and it should be all said and done by the time we get to Thursday. The reason I say it's all said and done when it comes to Thursday is because there is a lot of that low pressure system working its way in right now, and that's what's creating all these flurries and the snowfalls. But once we pass through it, we get ourselves into Thursday, get ourselves into Friday, well, guess what? We're going to have ourselves some beautiful weather. It's going to be clear skies, get to really experience that sun, and it's not going to be much clouds or flurries to ruin the experience. Now, looking at our 3 and 7 day forecast, as mentioned, once that snow's out the way on Wednesday, Thursday's going to be a high of 4, Friday's going to be a high of 10, and look at those overnight lows slowly but surely work their way up. Now, here's what it looks like when it comes to your Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. It's going to be a high of 6 on Saturday, high of 7 on Sunday, and that high of 5 on Monday. But eventually, when it comes to Monday night into Tuesday, things slowly but surely start to cool down, and it will get right back to seasonal type temperatures. But you know what? How about that? A +4, +10, +6, 3 days in a row of above seasonal temperatures. That's fantastic weather. Now, make sure you're bundled up for that snow we're expecting on Wednesday. Not too much is going to come, but make sure you're prepared.
Sounds good. Thanks, Victor. More news coming up after this short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. 1,200 students from across Ontario were treated to a special holiday gala at Liberty Grand today. It's all thanks to the nonprofit Children's Breakfast Clubs, which provides hot, nutritious meals to kids. Described as a winter wonderland, today's event included some special performances and guests.
So Today's our 11th annual Caring and Sharing event where we, Spin Master, welcome kids in partnership with the Children's Breakfast Clubs to pick a toy for themselves and also a toy to give to someone else in their lives. So it's really capturing the true spirit of the season in terms of also caring and sharing.
I think it's actually fun for giving out for other people, especially when people need it. I got this Bakugo toy for my friend. His name is Dylan, and I've known him for a really long time, and I thought he'd like this toy.
So I got this kinetic sand from my brother since she loves it so much.
We've been doing this now for a number of years because we wanted our children not only to have the experience of being served a meal in such a fabulous venue as this, we want them to have memories that they'll never forget, and it's been going on. I mean, I meet children that have been now 10 years later, and they still remember this event and say how special it was for them to have a meal served to them. So often, I know it's hard to believe, but our children don't get somebody serving them a meal. They eat at McDonald's, Kentucky Fried, and all these fast food venues, but they've never had the opportunity to come to a venue like this and to experience this. But also the opportunity to get a gift, but to give a gift to another child and to care for others. And that's what we are all about as an organization, is caring and sharing. Building a community that looks out for each other, that makes sure that we all are successful, we grow together, and that's what we're all about.
In Toronto, Raptor Pascal Siakam stepped off the court to meet some of his youngest fans at a children's rehabilitation hospital. Children with disabilities and frontline staff snapped pictures with the Raptors forward. Siakam also gave out some autographs and shared a laugh with the kids, all to bring some holiday cheer to Holland Bloorview Hospital. Well, that's our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Dwight Drummond has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6 o'clock. We'll leave you now with a look at the Christmas lights at Casa Loma captured by our drone team. Have a good night, everybody.